Welcome to Lantern and Lullaby. I'm so glad you've chosen to spend this quiet evening here. Before tonight's journey begins, allow yourself to become completely comfortable. Let the day slowly drift behind you. Your thoughts can become a little quieter. Your breathing can settle into its own gentle rhythm. There is nowhere else you need to be, and nothing more you need to do. Tonight, we'll travel through a snowy northern valley, following a quiet road between dark forests and frozen hills, towards a grand hotel waiting beside an ice-covered lake. Beyond its doors, warm fires, silent libraries, glass-roofed gardens and peaceful pools are waiting. And high above the hotel, the northern lights are beginning to move across the winter sky. With every room you enter, the noise of the world can grow a little more distant as you move a little closer to rest. So, whenever you're ready, the coach is beginning its journey through the snow, and our story begins. A broad pane of glass fills the space beside you, its outer edges traced with delicate frost. Beyond it, the winter road passes through darkness. Snowflakes sweep towards the window, briefly catching the coach's interior light before vanishing into the night behind you. Some arrive as tiny points. Others turn slowly through the air, large enough to reveal their branching shapes for a moment. Inside the coach, the air carries the faint scent of polished wood and wool upholstery. A narrow lamp above the aisle gives off a restrained amber light, leaving most of the compartment in comfortable shadow. Empty seats stretch towards the front, their high backs facing the road ahead. The wheels maintain an even rhythm beneath the floor. There is no need to know how far you have traveled. For now, there is only the moving window, the enclosed warmth of the coach, and the snowfall steadily covering everything beyond the glass. The scattered buildings appear one by one through the snowfall. Steep roofs hold thick layers of white, their eaves forming deep shadows above shuttered windows. Chimneys rise into the night, sending pale threads of smoke across the road before the wind loosens them. No doors open as the coach passes. A few downstairs windows remain illuminated, each one briefly revealing a quiet room before sliding out of sight behind the frosted edge of the glass. The road bends around a small stone, well covered by a peaked wooden roof. Beyond it stands the last house in the village, narrower than the others, and almost completely surrounded by snow-laden fir trees. Its window remains visible for several seconds. Then the road turns again. The house disappears behind the trees, taking the village lights with it. Ahead, the snow deepens, the road narrows, and the coach enters a night with no buildings anywhere in view. The forest closes around the road. Trunks rise in close ranks on either side, almost black beneath their burden of snow. Their highest branches lean towards one another, forming an uneven canopy above the coach. The view from the window becomes a repeating pattern of tree, shadow, and white ground. Every so often, the forest opens just enough to reveal another layer of pines standing farther back, their outlines softened by the falling snow. The coach follows a gradual curve. Its lamps spread a low band of light across the road ahead, revealing two shallow tracks pressed into fresh powder. Within moments, the snowfall begins filling them again. Branches pass close to the glass, A loose veil of snow slips from one of them and scatters into the road, where the coach moves through it without changing pace. The forest seems endless, yet the steady turning of the wheels gives the darkness a dependable rhythm. At first, it resembles a faint stain of colour across the clouds. A narrow green line rests above the treetops, so pale that it nearly disappears whenever the snow thickens. The coach rounds another bend. More of the northern sky becomes visible between the pines, and the colour returns, stretching farther than before. It does not flash or blaze. It hangs in the distance, like a sheer curtain viewed through several layers of winter air. The road remains dark beneath it. Snow continues to settle on the branches and gather along the edges of the track. Nothing in the forest changes, yet the new colour gives the landscape a greater depth. The green ribbon lifts at one end. For several quiet seconds, it forms a shallow arc above the road before the trees close together again. Only a diluted glow remains between their highest branches, travelling in the same direction as the coach. Low walls rise beside the wheels as the coach reaches the bridge. Their upper stones are almost hidden beneath rounded banks of snow. Between them, the frozen river extends in both directions, pale beneath the night sky. The ice is not perfectly smooth. Dark reeds stand trapped near the banks, and long white seams cross the surface where the river froze in separate layers. In the centre, a narrow strip of darker blue suggests water moving far below. The coach travels slowly across. The sound beneath the floor changes from the muted press of snow to a deeper vibration carried through the stonework. Halfway over, the trees no longer block the horizon. The faint aurora becomes visible again above the river, reflected only as a blurred green trace beneath the ice. Then the far bank rises towards the window. The stone walls end. The wheels return to snow, and the road enters a stand of pale birch trees. The birches stand farther apart than the pines. Their pale bark catches what little light reaches the road, making each trunk appear briefly before it passes the window. Above them, thousands of narrow branches overlap against the sky. The coach climbs at an unhurried pace. Snow has gathered in deep folds along the uphill side of the road. On the other side, the ground slopes away into a hollow filled with young birch trees, their tips barely rising above the drifts. The ascent brings the coach closer to the low clouds. For a time, the aurora is hidden completely. Only a muted brightness remains behind them, outlining the ridge ahead. The road makes a wide turn around a dark outcrop of stone. From there, the birches begin to thin. Their white trunks become fewer. The sky opens, and the coach approaches the crest of the hill with the storm moving freely across it. The landscape becomes suddenly immense. Snow stretches away from the road without a fence, building or footprint to interrupt it. Wind has shaped the surface into long, shallow ridges, each one casting a blue-grey shadow across the next. The coach appears smaller here. Its lamps illuminate only the nearest section of road, while the field continues far beyond their reach. A few exposed grasses bend through the snow at the edge of the track. Their dry stems tremble in the wind, then disappear beneath passing veils of powder. Above the field, the cloud cover begins to separate. The earlier green line remains hidden, but patches of clear sky appear between darker masses of cloud. Through one opening, several cold stars become visible. The road crosses the field in a nearly straight line. There is no indication of where it leads until a distant cluster of trees forms a dark boundary at the far end. They are too steady to be stars. At first, there are only two, separated by a wide stretch of darkness. A third appears when the road dips, followed by several more arranged at different heights. The trees conceal whatever holds them. Black trunks pass across the view, dividing the lights into brief fragments. Some disappear entirely, then return farther along the road. The coach reaches the shelter of the woodland. Here, the wind becomes less forceful, and the snow falls more vertically between the branches. The road is wider than the forest track behind you, with low stone markers almost buried along its edges. The distant lights remain ahead. Their colour is not bright. It is the subdued gold of rooms seen from far across a winter landscape. As the coach follows the road downhill, the trees separate enough to reveal that the lights extend across a broad slope. Whatever stands beyond the forest is much larger than a single house. A dark horizontal space appears below them. For several moments, it seems to be another field. Then the road descends farther, and the shape becomes recognizable as a lake lying beneath the snow. The forest follows the slope towards its shore. Tall spruce trees frame the view, but between their trunks, the valley is now visible. A wide, frozen basin surrounded by white hills and distant ridges. The lights stand on the opposite side. Some are positioned close to the water. Others climb the hillside above it, forming long rows and clustered groups. Their reflections rest beneath them, dimmed and lengthened by layers of snow-covered ice. The coach takes a broad turn. From this angle, the road can be seen winding towards the lake before vanishing behind a low ridge. The aurora returns above the valley, still faint, but wider now. A pale green band extends across the northern horizon, waiting beyond the final trees. For the first time, nothing stands between you and the valley. The lake fills the hollow from one wooded shore to the other. Snow lies across much of its surface, but broad sections of exposed ice remain visible near the center, polished dark blue by the wind. Cracks branch beneath the surface like pale roots. Along the near shore, reeds and rounded stones have been sealed into the ice. On the far side, the distant lights form a quiet border beneath the hillside. The coach follows the overlook for a short distance. With every change in angle, the aurora's reflection alters. At times, it is barely present. At others, a muted green shimmer appears beneath the darker ice. Clouds continue moving away from the northern sky. The green band above the lake gains a second layer, thinner and more transparent than the first. The road then begins its descent towards the shore, carrying the coach below. The hotel stands along the far shore of the lake. Its central building rises above two long wings, all of them constructed from pale stone, darkened slightly by winter weather. Snow rests on steep roofs, rounded towers and glass-covered galleries. Rows of tall windows glow at different intensities. Some reveal warm reception rooms. Others hold only the reflection of the lake and sky. At the highest point, a broad glass dome remains unlit beneath the green horizon. The hotel is larger than it seemed from the forest. Covered walkways connect several smaller buildings beside the shore. A low pavilion extends onto the frozen lake, and a sheltered terrace follows the waterline below the main windows. Nothing around it moves. The entire building appears to have been waiting in complete stillness, surrounded by snow, forest, and ice. The descending road turns directly towards it. Stone barriers run close beside the coach, their surfaces rounded by accumulated snow. Beyond them, the lake lies almost level with the road. The exposed ice is darker here, protected from drifting snow by the causeway walls. Trapped air forms silver circles beneath the surface, and long cracks lead away towards the center of the lake. Ahead, the hotel grows steadily larger. Individual windows become distinct. Snow-covered balconies line the nearest wing, while tall glass panels reveal a winter garden filled with shadowed trees. The causeway curves towards the main entrance. Small recessed lights have been built into the stone at wide intervals, each one illuminating only a short section of the road. Between them, the snow returns to blue-grey darkness. The aurora stretches behind the hotel roofline. Its reflection travels beside the coach beneath the ice, remaining visible until the causeway begins to rise towards the entrance grounds. The coach slows beneath the portico. Heavy columns stand on either side, their bases surrounded by wind-blown snow. Above them, the stone canopy protects a wide sweep of pale paving that has remained mostly clear. The sound of the road falls away. For a moment, only the low idle of the coach and the distant movement of wind around the building remain. Ahead, several tall glass doors form the hotel entrance. Their dark panes hold reflections of the snowy drive, the waiting coach, and the faint green sky beyond. Through the glass, a smaller interior chamber can be seen. Its floor is laid with dark stone. A row of low wall lights reveals polished wood, brass fittings, and the first hint of warmth within the building. Snow continues falling beyond the edge of the portico. Here, beneath the canopy, the flakes no longer reach the ground. The journey by road has ended. The wind becomes a distant sound. Inside the vestibule, the air is noticeably warmer, carrying the clean scent of stone dried by heat. Meltwater shines in a narrow line across the dark floor where earlier arrivals have crossed from the snow. A second set of doors stands ahead. Between the two entrances, polished wooden walls rise beneath a ceiling of ribbed glass. Frost remains on the outer panes, but the inner glass is perfectly clear. A long brass vent runs close to the floor. Warm air moves from it in an almost invisible current, gradually drying the nearest stones and loosening the mist along the lower windows. Beyond the inner doors, a much larger space can be glimpsed. Firelight reaches across a pale floor. High columns disappear beyond the top of the glass. And somewhere deeper in the hotel, water moves with a slow indoor echo. The outer storm now belongs to the other side of the doors. The lobby opens in every direction. Pale stone columns rise through 2 stories before meeting a ceiling crossed by dark wooden beams. Between them, wide seating areas have been arranged around low fireplaces set directly into the walls. The room is empty, yet it does not feel abandoned. Cushions remain neatly placed. Small tables hold ceramic bowls filled with pine cones and smooth stones. A line of winter coats hangs in a distant alcove, though no voices or footsteps follow. At the center of the lobby lies a long, reflecting pool. The water is almost motionless. A narrow stream enters at one end, disturbing the surface just enough to scatter the reflections of the ceiling lights. Large windows face the frozen lake. Snow presses against their lower panes, while the upper glass holds the first faint green movement of the sky. The coach journey already feels far behind, separated from this room by warmth, stone, and still water. The staircase divides midway up. A single flight rises from the lobby before separating into 2 curved branches, each following the wall towards an upper gallery. Its dark wooden handrails have been polished until they hold long reflections from the fireplaces below. Above the landing, a glass ceiling reveals the winter sky. Snow rests along its metal ribs, leaving irregular, clear sections between them. Through those openings, the aurora appears as a pale wash rather than a distinct ribbon. The reflecting pool ends at the foot of the stairs. Its final section has been cut into a shallow circle, mirroring the staircase and the glass roof directly above. As you draw closer, the upper gallery becomes easier to see. Tall doors line its far wall. Between them stand narrow windows overlooking interior courtyards, hidden elsewhere in the hotel. The building does not reveal itself all at once. It offers one direction, then another, each leading farther from the road outside. The larger lobby falls behind almost immediately. Here, the ceiling is lower, supported by square wooden beams and panels of pale plaster. A long counter follows one wall, its surface made from a single piece of dark, polished timber. Nothing rests on it except a shallow stone bowl holding several smooth pieces of blue glass. Behind the counter, a wall of small compartments stands closed. Their brass edges catch the low light, but none bears a visible label or number. A thick, woven carpet covers the center of the hall. Its colors echo the landscape outside. Deep, lake blue, grey-white snow, and the faintest thread of green. At the far end, an open archway frames a row of tall windows. Unlike the lobby windows, these stand only a short distance from the lake. The ice beyond them appears almost level with the floor. The reception hall seems less like a place of arrival and more like a quiet threshold to the hotel's inner rooms. Windows occupy almost the entire outer wall. Their lower panes begin only a short distance above the floor, giving the impression that the lake extends directly beside the corridor. Snow has gathered against the exterior stone ledge, but beyond it, exposed ice reaches towards the center of the valley. The gallery curves gently with the shoreline. Along its inner wall stand low benches upholstered in dark green fabric. Between them, recessed shelves hold unlit glass vessels, pieces of pale stone, and branches of dried winter berries. The floor is polished limestone. Each window forms a separate rectangle across it, some blue with reflected snow, others nearly black where they face the deeper ice. Farther along, the gallery widens around a shallow indoor pool. Its water sits at the same apparent height as the lake outside, separated only by glass and stone. Above both surfaces, the northern lights begin to gather into a clearer shape. The pool is no deeper than a few inches. Its base has been laid with dark stone, allowing the water to reflect the windows with unusual clarity. The lake beyond appears directly behind it, creating two adjoining surfaces divided by a narrow line of glass. The aurora has strengthened above the valley. A broad green veil now stretches from one side of the sky to the other. Violet is present only at its upper edge, so faint that it appears and disappears whenever the curtain folds. Inside the gallery, the color reaches the floor. It travels across the polished limestone, enters the shallow pool, and touches the lower sections of the columns behind you. The effect is quiet rather than brilliant. Firelight from the lobby no longer reaches this far. The room is lit almost entirely by the snow outside, several concealed wall lights, and the changing sky. For the first time, the hotel appears connected to the northern lights, rather than merely standing beneath them. The balcony extends over the frozen shoreline. Its curved windows face the lake on three sides, while a glass roof arches overhead. Snow slides slowly down the outer surface, gathering along the lowest frame. From here, the hotel can be seen in full. The central building rises behind you, flanked by its long wings and rounded towers. The covered entrance rests at one end of the drive, now empty beneath the snow. Farther away, the causeway crosses the edge of the lake before disappearing into the dark woodland. Above it all, the aurora has unfolded. Green curtains span the northern sky, layered and translucent, with occasional traces of violet along their highest folds. Their light moves across the hotel roofs, the frozen lake, and the balcony glass. The building remains still beneath them. Inside, every stone, window, and stretch of water seems to be waiting for the night to deepen. The road has delivered you here. The rest of the hotel lies ahead. The doors stand beneath an arch of pale stone. Their glass panels are warmer than the windows along the lake, clouded at the edges by the change in temperature between the gallery and the room beyond. Through them, a sheltered garden can be seen beneath a high roof. Dark leaves overlap the glass. Slender trunks rise between beds of moss and polished stones, while a paved path disappears beneath broad hanging branches. The handles turn without resistance. As the doors open, the air changes. It carries damp soil, cedar bark, and the mineral scent of water, warmed somewhere below the floor. The cold brightness of the lake remains behind you, softened now by 2 layers of glass. A shallow channel crosses the entrance beneath a narrow stone bridge. Clear water moves over a bed of grey pebbles before continuing into the garden. Small ferns lean above it, their fronds reflected in the surface. Beyond the bridge, the path divides around a circular planting bed. One route enters a darker collection of trees. The other follows the glass wall towards a brighter section farther inside. The second path leads onward. The paving changes from polished limestone to broad slabs of pale slate. Moisture darkens their edges, drawing irregular shapes around each joint. Between the stones, narrow lines of moss have taken hold, where the garden's warmth reaches the floor. The glass wall rises beside the path. Outside, snow has collected along its lower supports, while the frozen lake lies beyond in alternating bands of white and deep blue. The aurora appears only in fragments between the roof beams. Inside, the planting grows denser. Glossy leaves spread from low beds beside the wall. Taller shrubs form loose screens between sections of the garden, allowing only partial views of what lies ahead. Water travels beside the path in a shallow stone channel. Its course bends around roots, disappears beneath flat slabs and returns several feet farther on. Each reappearance carries a different reflection from the roof above. The path curves gradually. Through the foliage, a cluster of pale trunks becomes visible under a higher section of glass. Their branches reach upward without leaves, fine and dark against the green sky. The garden is leading towards an indoor birch grove. The birches rise from a broad island of dark soil. Their white bark carries thin markings of charcoal and silver. Each trunk illuminated differently by the lamps concealed around the planting bed. Above, their bare branches form a delicate canopy beneath the glass. Snow lies across the roof beyond them. In several clear sections, the northern sky shows through, casting a diluted green tint over the highest twigs. The path circles the grove. Low stone seating has been built into its outer edge, warmed from beneath and softened with narrow cushions in muted grey-blue fabric. Between the trunks, small pools of water have gathered around smooth black stones. They are connected by channels no wider than a hand, producing a gentle sequence of ripples wherever the water changes level. At the far side, a wooden screen separates the grove from an adjoining room. Warm light passes through its open latticework, accompanied by the muted glow of a fireplace. An opening in the screen reveals upholstered chairs, small tables, and the edge of a porcelain tea service. The garden gives way to a sheltered tea room. The tea room is lower and more enclosed than the garden. Dark beams cross the ceiling above walls finished in pale plaster and walnut paneling. The windows remain tall, but heavy curtains frame them closely, keeping the winter landscape at the edges of the room. A wide fireplace occupies the far wall. Its flames are modest, burning behind a low iron grate beneath a mantle of unpolished stone. The warmth spreads across a group of deep chairs, positioned at comfortable angles rather than arranged in formal rows. Small tables stand between them. Each carries an empty porcelain cup, a folded linen cloth, and a simple glass vessel holding one clipped evergreen branch. No place appears reserved, and nothing suggests that anyone has only just left. Near the windows, a longer table displays covered pots and polished silver warmers. Steam escapes faintly from one lid before fading into the room. Beyond the seating area, a pair of sliding doors has been left open. Through them appears another chamber, lined with tall shelves. Its center occupied by long reading tables beneath shaded lamps. The hotel's reading rooms begin on the other side. Tall shelves rise between the windows, and continue around the inner walls. Their books form quiet bands of charcoal, faded blue, brown, and muted green. No titles can be seen from the center of the room. Only the textures of cloth, leather, and paper remain visible. 3 long tables occupy the floor. Each is made from dark timber, with softened corners, and a line of shaded lamps running along its center. Their light falls downward, leaving the upper shelves in partial shadow. The chairs have been pushed neatly beneath the tables. A few books rest open near the lamps, their pages turned away or too distant to reveal any writing. At the far end, 2 fireplaces face one another across the room. Between them stands a broad window overlooking the winter garden roof. Snow has gathered across the glass panels below, turning the garden into a series of dark plant silhouettes beneath white ridges. A narrow aisle continues beyond the final table. It enters a second library, where the ceiling slopes beneath the snow-covered roof. The light there is cooler, drawn from the night above. The ceiling descends gradually towards the outer wall. Above it, glass panels follow the roof line in long sections divided by dark metal ribs. Snow covers most of them, leaving only narrow channels through which the sky can be seen. The shelves here are shorter. They stand beneath the lowest sections of glass, arranged in quiet rows with small gaps between them. Each gap reveals another patch of snow, resting only a few inches beyond the roof. A central walkway follows the slope of the room. Low lamps have been built into the shelf ends, throwing soft pools of light across the carpet without reaching the glass above. The aurora remains faint through the snow. Its color enters the room indirectly, appearing as a pale green cast along the roof supports and the upper edges of the shelves. At the end of the walkway, the roof rises again around a deep window recess. A single curved bench fills the alcove, facing the frozen lake through a broad pane framed by frost. The library narrows towards that quiet seat. The alcove is deep enough to feel separate from the library. Its walls curve inward around the seat, lined with dark wood at shoulder height and pale fabric above. A narrow brass light is recessed beneath the shelf overhead, giving the space a soft, downward glow. The window occupies the full outer wall. Frost has formed around its perimeter, leaving the center clear. Through it, the frozen lake stretches towards the opposite hills, darker now beneath a sky gradually losing its cloud cover. The aurora has shifted farther north. Only its lower edge is visible from here, reflected as a diluted green band across a strip of exposed ice near the far shore. A folded blanket rests at one end of the bench. Beside it stands a low table, supporting an empty stone cup and a small bowl of smooth white pebbles. The rest of the library remains behind you, reduced to dim rows of shelves and shaded lamps. A second doorway has been set into the alcove's inner curve. Beyond it, polished wood and the black shape of a grand piano appear beneath a higher ceiling. The piano stands slightly off-center on a circular section of darker flooring. Its lid remains closed, reflecting the ceiling lights in long, softened lines. The bench has been pushed beneath the keyboard, leaving the instrument undisturbed. Around it, the room is composed of gentle curves. A rounded ceiling follows the shape of the floor. Upholstered chairs form a loose semicircle, and the outer windows bow towards the lake rather than meeting it in a straight wall. Several instruments rest inside glass-fronted recesses. Their polished wood catches the room's low light, though the cases remain closed and no music stands have been left nearby. A narrow fireplace burns beside the windows. Its flame barely rises above the grate, adding warmth without dominating the cool light coming from the lake. On the opposite side, double doors stand partly open. Beyond them lies a much larger room with a long table, tall arched windows and hanging lights reflected in polished silver. The hotel's dining hall waits next. A single table runs through the center of the room. It is not fully set for a meal. Pale linen covers the surface, but the place settings are widely spaced, leaving generous stretches of empty cloth between them. Low silver bowls hold evergreen tips, dried seed heads, and pieces of pale stone. Glassware catches the light from a row of simple pendants overhead, breaking it into small reflections across the table. The outer wall is formed by tall arched windows. Their lower panes reveal snow banked along the terrace. Higher up, the lake and distant sky appear between the window frames. At one end of the hall, a broad fireplace has been cut into the stone wall. At the other, a pair of service doors stands open beneath a lower arch. A warm, tiled passage continues beyond them, carrying the faint scent of bread, herbs, and heated metal. The dining room feels prepared, but unused. Nothing waits to begin. The open service passage offers the next route through the hotel. The ceiling is lower here, crossed by copper pipes and dark timber supports. Rows of preparation tables divide the room, their stone tops scrubbed clean. Copper pans hang above them in measured lines, each one catching a different reflection from the ovens along the far wall. Several ovens remain warm. Their iron doors are closed, but a faint red glow shows through narrow vents near the floor. The heat has cleared every trace of frost from the small high windows. A wide range stands beneath a tiled hood. Nothing cooks on its surface. Covered pots have been arranged along a side counter, while bundles of dried herbs hang from a wooden rail or well away from the heat. The kitchen is orderly, without feeling unused. A bowl of flour sits near a wooden board. A folded cloth rests beside a cooling rack, and one loaf has been placed beneath a plain linen cover. At the rear of the room, a narrower doorway leads into a softly lit chamber filled with marble counters and wooden racks. A trace of sweetness reaches the kitchen from beyond it. The change in temperature is immediate. Pale counters run along three sides of the room, their surfaces carrying a cool sheen beneath the ceiling lamps. Wooden racks stand between them, holding trays at different heights. Most are empty. One supports several small loaves beneath a linen cloth. Another holds rows of plain pastries cooling without glaze or decoration, their shapes simple and uneven. A long work table occupies the center. A rolling pin rests beside a shallow bowl of flour, and a folded sheet of dough lies beneath another cloth. Nothing has been left in disorder. The outer windows are smaller than those elsewhere in the hotel. frost covers their corners, while the clear centres show only the snow-covered wall of an adjoining courtyard. At the far end, a glass door leads outside the working rooms. Beyond it stands a stone fountain beneath an enclosed roof, surrounded by pale paving and evergreen shrubs. The service wing opens unexpectedly into an interior courtyard. The courtyard is enclosed on all four sides. Pale stone walls rise towards a high glass roof, crossed by iron ribs. Snow has gathered above them, leaving a broad, clear circle over the fountain at the centre. The fountain is low and wide. Water rises only a few inches before falling back across a dark stone basin. The sound is measured and soft, repeated beneath the courtyard roof without becoming an echo. Evergreen shrubs occupy square beds around the paving. Their branches have been clipped into loose natural forms rather than strict shapes. Between them, narrow channels carry overflow from the fountain towards grated openings beneath the walls. Windows look into the courtyard from several levels. Most remain dark. A few hold the warm reflections of rooms hidden behind curtains or wooden screens. Across the paving, an arched doorway opens beneath a strip of blue fabric. Beyond it waits a lounge furnished in deeper colours than any room visited so far. The room is wrapped in deep blue velvet. It covers the long sofas beneath the windows, the smaller chairs gathered around low tables and the heavy curtains drawn back from the glass. The colour absorbs much of the firelight. Rather than filling the room with gold, the flames remain concentrated around a narrow fireplace built into a wall of dark stone. The ceiling is coffered and low. Small lights have been concealed within its recesses, producing a gentle glow without visible fittings. A broad rug covers the centre of the floor. Its pattern is formed from soft bands of grey, blue and faded green, echoing the lake, snow and aurora without depicting them directly. One wall contains a series of wide openings rather than doors. Through the nearest, a long gallery can be seen, lined with large framed winter landscapes beneath individual picture lights. The lounge appears designed for lingering. The gallery beyond is meant for moving on. The first landscape shows a frozen shoreline beneath a low grey sky. Farther along, another depicts a stand of birch trees after heavy snow. A third contains mountains seen through mist, their highest ridges almost lost against the pale background. None of the paintings includes a figure. They hold only land, weather, water, and distance. The frames are broad but undecorated, made from dark wood that matches the panelling beneath them. Each picture is lit separately from above, leaving the spaces between in subdued shadow. The gallery floor slopes almost imperceptibly upward. Tall windows appear at intervals along the opposite wall, offering real views of snow-filled courtyards and glass roofs below. As you continue, the painted landscapes gradually become brighter. The final frames contain green light above dark hills, followed by a broad view of the northern lights reflected across an empty lake. At the end of the gallery, the floor reaches an indoor balcony overlooking the hotel's central spaces. The garden appears different from above. Its paths weave between clusters of foliage that concealed one another at ground level. The birch grove sits near the centre, Its pale branches spread beneath the glass roof, like fine lines across dark paper. Water channels connect the planting beds. From this height, their route can be followed from the entrance bridge to the shallow pools beneath the trees, and onward towards sections of the garden not yet explored. The balcony follows the inner wall. Behind the railing, the corridor remains warm and dim, lined with narrow tables holding stone bowls and unlit glass vessels. Ahead, the balcony reaches a glass bridge. It crosses the full width of the winter garden beneath the roof, joining this wing of the hotel to a higher conservatory on the opposite side. Snow rests above the bridge in long white bands. Beneath it, the garden's dark leaves and pale trunks form a sheltered landscape several floors below. The only route forward now passes over the trees. Glass surrounds the bridge on both sides and overhead. Its metal framework is slender, painted a dark colour that nearly disappears against the night. Snow rests along the upper ribs, while the vertical panes remain mostly clear. The floor is made from pale stone panels. A narrow strip of light runs close to each wall, illuminating the edges without reflecting brightly against the glass. Below, the tops of the birches pass beneath the bridge. Their finest branches rise almost to the floor, close enough for their shadows to move across the stone whenever the aurora changes above the roof. The garden recedes behind you. Ahead, the bridge enters a conservatory filled with smaller trees and dense, glossy foliage. Several round fruits hang among the leaves, pale gold against the deeper green. Warm moisture begins to mist the final panes. The bridge has crossed from the cool winter garden into a sheltered citrus house. The trees grow in broad stone planters, arranged along a winding tiled path. Their trunks are short and dark, branching low beneath dense crowns of polished leaves. Fruit appears at different stages, deep green near the inner branches, pale yellow higher up, and warm gold where the lamps reach them. The conservatory is humid. Condensation gathers along the lower windows and forms thin trails down the glass. Outside, snow presses against the walls, separated from the trees by little more than a clear pane. A series of shallow basins stands between the planters. Warm water fills each one to the rim, releasing a faint haze that drifts beneath the leaves before disappearing into the roof space. The path circles a central tree, larger than the others. Beyond it, a stone arch leads into a room built along the outer lake wall. Bookshelves and low reading chairs can be seen between broad windows. The warmth of the citrus garden begins to recede near the arch. Cooler blue light reaches through from the lakeside room beyond. The room follows the curve of the lake. Broad windows occupy the entire outer wall, divided by pale stone supports and narrow strips of dark wood. The ice beyond begins almost directly below them. Low shelves line the inner wall. Their books are arranged loosely, with open spaces containing smooth stones, pieces of driftwood and plain ceramic vessels. Rather than long tables, the room contains individual reading chairs. Each faces the windows at a slightly different angle. Small lamps stand beside them, their shades directing light towards the empty seats and away from the glass. A circular rug lies near the center. Its surface is woven in layers of blue-gray, and muted green, mirroring the color of the lake beneath the aurora. At the far end, the windows give way to a narrower passage. Its panes are heavily frosted, admitting only softened shapes of trees, snow, and green sky. The route through the public rooms is drawing closer to the hotel's spa wing. The corridor is cooler than the rooms behind it. Tall windows line one side, but only their centers remain partly clear. Frost spreads across the rest in branching patterns, turning the passing trees and snowbanks into indistinct blue shapes. On the opposite wall, dark wooden panels alternate with shallow recesses. Each recess contains a simple stone vessel filled with cedar branches, their scent becoming stronger as the corridor continues. The floor changes beneath you. Polished limestone gives way to textured grey stone, less reflective and warmer beneath each step. Thin brass strips mark the joints between the slabs. The corridor makes two gradual turns. After the first, the reading room disappears. After the second, the sound of moving water becomes audible somewhere ahead. A low haze touches the floor near the final archway. Beyond it, the hotel's materials change again. Pale stone becomes lighter. Dark timber gives way to cedar, and soft blue light rises from tiled walls. A broad entrance marks the beginning of the spa wing. The entrance chamber is circular. Pale stone walls rise towards a shallow domed ceiling, crossed by narrow cedar ribs. Concealed light follows the curve overhead, giving the room an even glow without a visible central fixture. The floor is laid with warm grey tiles. A thin film of moisture softens their surface, reflecting the cedar and stone without becoming mirror bright. 3 passages leave the chamber. The first continues level beneath a row of low arches. The second slopes downward beside a narrow channel of moving water. The third is closed by tall glass doors clouded with steam. At the center stands a shallow basin. Water wells from a dark stone opening and spreads across the pale surface before slipping silently over one edge. The sound heard in the corridor comes from here. Through the steamed glass doors, the faint outline of a tiled hall can be seen beneath a high roof. Warm light moves across water somewhere beyond them. The hotel's libraries, lounges, and winter gardens now lie behind you. The spa begins on the other side of the glass. The doors part with only a slight release of mist. Beyond them, the passage extends beneath a sequence of shallow arches faced in pale blue-grey tile. Moisture has deepened the color along the lower walls, while the upper surfaces remain almost white. The floor carries its own warmth. A narrow band of darker stone follows the center, bordered by tiles whose surface has been textured to remain steady beneath water. Small beads of condensation gather between the joints and travel slowly towards hidden drains. Along one wall, water runs through an open channel. It enters beneath the first arch as a clear stream no wider than a hand, then follows the passage at floor level. At intervals, it passes beneath stone grills and returns on the other side with a slightly different sound. The opposite wall contains a series of recessed shelves. Each holds folded plain towels, smooth stones, and shallow ceramic bowls without decoration. The passage turns gently. Through the final arch, a smaller glass chamber appears, filled with soft vapor. and lit from below by water. The spa has not yet reached its pools. It begins with warmth, tile, and the quiet movement of the channel beside you. Glass surrounds the vestibule on 3 sides. The lower panes are clear enough to reveal the tiled floor and the water channel entering beneath the wall. Higher up, condensation turns the glass into a shifting surface of blurred light. A cedar bench follows the inner curve of the chamber. Its slats are darkened by humidity, and a folded length of grey fabric rests at one end. Above it, narrow vents release warm air in slow intervals, preventing the mist from becoming too dense. The water channel widens beneath the centre of the room. It crosses below a glass floor panel, exposing pale stones and small currents moving beneath your feet. The light comes from below the water rather than from the ceiling, giving the vapour a faint blue cast. On the far side, another door stands open. Through it, the first mineral pool can be seen beneath a low vaulted roof. The water is still, edged by broad stone steps descending gradually from the floor. A row of small arched windows reveals snow pressed against the outer wall. The contrast is immediate. Frozen night beyond the glass. Warm water waiting only a few steps away. The pool occupies most of the room. Its shape is simple. A long rectangle, softened by rounded corners, set slightly below the surrounding floor. Pale steps descend at the near end until they disappear beneath clear blue-grey water. A line of dark stone marks the water's edge. Beyond it, the floor is laid with larger warm grey slabs, their surfaces broken only by shallow channels, carrying overflow towards the walls. The ceiling follows a low barrel vault. Moisture has gathered across the tiles above, catching the concealed light and returning it as a subdued sheen rather than a bright reflection. Along the outer wall, narrow arched windows sit close to the water. Snow presses against their lower sections. The clear upper panes show only the trunks of nearby pines and a thin strip of dark sky. The pool remains completely undisturbed. Mineral deposits form pale bands along the submerged steps, while a small inlet beneath the far wall sends out slow, concentric ripples. The room contains no ornament beyond water, stone, and the winter night held behind glass. At the far end, another arch opens into a much larger bathing hall, supported by pale columns. The ceiling rises to nearly twice the previous height. Columns stand in 2 parallel lines, their surfaces left slightly rough, so the stone retains its natural markings. Between them, 3 bathing pools occupy separate levels of the floor. The nearest basin is shallow and circular. Its water is almost clear, warmed enough to release only the faintest mist. Beyond it, a longer pool rests several inches higher, reached by broad steps cut directly into the stone. The third basin lies beneath the far windows. It is darker than the others, coloured by deep grey tiles and the night outside. Water passes quietly from one pool to the next. It slips over narrow stone lips, gathers in channels between the columns, and returns through openings concealed beneath the floor. The hall's outer wall faces the lake. Tall windows rise behind the final pool, though frost and steam obscure most of the view. Only the lowest band of dark ice remains visible beyond the glass. At one side of the hall, a smaller passage follows the windows towards a brighter roofed chamber. Snow can be seen above it. The spa is beginning to move closer to the open sky. The roof rises directly above the water. Dark metal ribs form a long, pointed arch, carrying panels of glass from the low side walls to the ridge overhead. Snow has collected across much of the surface, leaving uneven, clear sections between white bands. The pool follows the shape of the chamber. It is narrow at the entrance, then widens towards the center, before tapering again beneath the far wall. Pale stone forms its edge, without a separate border. Above, the northern lights appear only where the snow has thinned. Green light passes through in broken pieces, interrupted by roof beams and drifting cloud. Each fragment reaches the pool as a softened patch rather than a complete reflection. Warm water releases a low veil of vapor. It never rises high enough to conceal the roof. Instead, it moves close to the surface and gathers lightly along the glass walls. At the far end, water leaves the pool beneath a narrow stone opening. The sound continues beyond the wall, followed by the more distinct rhythm of several small falls. A side doorway stands open beside it. The next chamber is shaped around descending water. The water enters high along the inner wall. It does not fall in a single curtain. Instead, it passes through 5 shallow ledges, each one no more than a few inches below the last. The result is a measured sequence of soft descents. Every ledge forms a narrow basin of its own, lined with smooth, dark stone and edged by pale mineral deposits. The water gathers briefly, settles, then crosses the next lip. A path follows beside the cascades. Broad slabs of warm stone have been placed close enough to the water for their edges to remain damp. Concealed light beneath the lowest ledge turns the moving surface silver blue. The room curves around the descending channel. Small alcoves have been cut into the outer wall, each containing a simple cedar bench and a bowl of smooth black stones. No window interrupts the stonework. The sound of the cascades fills the chamber completely, yet never grows loud. It remains divided into many smaller notes, each shaped by the ledge beneath it. Beyond the final basin, a tall pane of glass reveals a snow-covered courtyard outside the spa. The path leads towards it. The window rises from floor to ceiling. Its lower edge is clear, revealing snow piled directly against the outer stone. Higher up, frost spreads across the corners in fine branching patterns. The courtyard beyond is narrow and entirely enclosed. Pale walls rise on 3 sides, sheltering the snow from most of the wind. A single dark pine stands at the center, its branches carrying thick, white layers. No path crosses the courtyard. The surface remains smooth except where small clumps have fallen from the tree, leaving shallow hollows beneath the branches. Warm water runs along the inside of the window. The cascade channel narrows here into a shallow trough, set directly beneath the glass. Its surface reflects the pine outside, then carries the broken image around the corner. A dark cedar door stands beside the window. It does not lead into the snow. Instead, it opens into an indoor garden, planted with young pines beneath another glass ceiling. The courtyard remains untouched. The route continues through its sheltered counterpart inside. The air carries the clean scent of resin and damp bark. Young pines rise from long beds of moss, their branches beginning only a short distance above the ground. None is taller than the surrounding stone walls, allowing the glass roof to remain fully visible. Snow lies across the outer surface. Beneath it, narrow heating lines have kept several panels clear, revealing a dark sky without a visible aurora. A tiled path winds between the planting beds. Its surface is drier than the bathing halls, though narrow water channels remain close beside it. They circle the bases of the trees, warming the soil before returning beneath the floor. Several low stones have been arranged as seats. Their upper surfaces are smooth and faintly warm, while their sides retain rough mineral textures. At the center, the path divides around a shallow oval pool filled with perfectly still water. Beyond the trees, a pale doorway leads into a chamber whose walls appear almost white. The color comes not from paint, but from blocks of translucent salt. The walls hold their own muted glow. Individual blocks vary from ivory to the faintest blush of grey, their cloudy interiors revealing delicate layers, formed long before the hotel existed. The chamber is almost square. Low stone benches follow three walls, each topped with a smooth, pale surface, warmed from beneath. Their corners have been rounded until no hard edge remains. The ceiling is darker than the walls. Thin cedar slats cross overhead, leaving narrow gaps through which warm air descends without a visible vent. At the center lies a shallow bed of coarse salt crystals. They are contained within a dark stone frame and illuminated only from below. The light reveals their texture without making them sparkle brightly. No water enters the room. After the pools and channels behind you, the stillness feels noticeably dry. Even the sound of the spa becomes distant, reduced to a faint movement beyond the thick walls. A narrow opening at the far side is veiled by white vapor. Beyond it, tiled seating curves around a darker steam room. The dry chamber gives way to humid warmth once again. The room is circular, but compact. Tiered benches follow the wall in two broad levels, the dark cedar surfaces interrupted by pale tiled supports. Moisture beads along the lower edges and gathers in narrow channels near the floor. Steam enters beneath the lowest bench. It rises slowly, rather than filling the room at once, forming soft layers that remain close to the walls and leave the center clear. A small round basin occupies the middle. Water falls into it from a narrow pipe set just above the surface, producing a steady sequence of single drops. The ceiling is domed and nearly black. Tiny points of condensation catch the low light before disappearing whenever the vapor shifts beneath them. One narrow window has been set high in the outer wall. Its glass is opaque with frost, but a cool blue brightness reaches through, enough to indicate the winter night beyond. Opposite the entrance, the benches separate around a descending passage. Warm water runs through a channel beside its first step. The spa is beginning to move below the main hotel and closer to the lake. The first steps are shallow and broad. They curve gradually, rather than dropping in a straight line, following the outer wall beneath a series of low stone arches. The thermal channel remains on the inner side. Its water is clear, but darker than the pools above, reflecting the ceiling and the small floor lights placed at wide intervals. The walls expose older stonework. Here, the surfaces are rougher, with thin mineral lines running through them in grey, white, and muted rust. Cedar appears only in the handrail, and the narrow grills set beneath each arch. The air becomes cooler as the passage descends. Warmth remains close to the water, while the upper part of the corridor carries the chill of the frozen ground beyond the walls. The passage eventually levels. Ahead, the stone gives way to a longer tunnel whose outer side is lined with thick glass. Beyond it lies darkness, blue ice, and the faint shape of the frozen shoreline. The thermal water continues beside the glass. The next route follows the lake from beneath its snowy edge. The tunnel is narrow enough to keep the lake close. Thick glass panels occupy the outer wall from floor to ceiling, held between broad stone supports. Beyond them, compacted snow and ice press against the lower sections. Higher up, a darker blue band reveals the underside of the frozen shoreline. Small bubbles remain trapped there, suspended beneath white seams and uneven layers. The thermal channel runs beside the glass. Its warm surface produces a light mist that drifts across the lowest panes, briefly softening the ice beyond before clearing again. The floor follows a gentle, downward slope. Low cedar rails border the inner wall, interrupted by narrow recesses, holding folded towels and plain ceramic cups. No lamps are mounted overhead. Light rises from the thermal channel and from concealed strips beneath the stone supports, keeping the ceiling in shadow. Farther along, the glass wall turns outward. The tunnel widens into an enclosed walkway, extending above deeper ice, where the frozen lake can be seen on both sides. The hotel's foundations are beginning to fall behind. Glass now surrounds the route on both sides. The floor remains stone, but its outer edges have been replaced by narrow, clear panels, revealing the ice directly below. Beneath them, pale fractures pass through deep blue layers before disappearing into shadow. The walkway is enclosed beneath a shallow glass roof. Snow has settled across it in uneven strips, leaving the side walls clearer than the panels overhead. Behind you, the tunnel entrance remains visible within the hotel's stone foundations. Ahead, the walkway reaches a low pavilion standing several yards from shore. Its roof is almost level with the frozen lake, while its interior glows softly through fogged glass. The thermal channel no longer runs openly beside the path. Instead, warm water moves through a sealed stone trough beneath the center of the floor, heating the walkway from below. The ice around the structure remains solid. Only a narrow line of meltwater follows the pavilion walls, dark enough to reflect the smallest trace of green sky. Before reaching the pavilion, a stair descends beneath the walkway. Its glass sides reveal a chamber positioned below the surface of the lake. The ceiling lowers as you descend. At the final step, the lake appears beside you through thick glass extending along both walls. The ice no longer lies below the floor. It rises around the room. Blue layers fill the view. Near the surface, white fractures branch horizontally through compacted snow. Deeper down, the ice becomes clearer and darker, holding rounded bubbles at different depths. The gallery floor is made from pale stone. A single low bench follows the center, leaving the glass walls completely unobstructed. Its cedar surface has been kept dry by warm air, moving through narrow vents beneath it. No fish move beyond the panes. The lake is frozen and nearly still. Only occasional points of suspended sediment drift in a narrow band of liquid water beneath the deepest ice. Light enters from above, through the walkway floor. It travels downward in faint strips, revealing textures that could not be seen from the shore. At the far end, the gallery turns into a wider blue chamber. The glass there curves overhead, as well as along the walls. The room feels suspended within the lake. Glass arches from one side to the other, forming a clear shell beneath layers of frozen water. Above it, pale cracks spread across the ice in branching lines, before fading into deeper blue. The chamber contains no furniture. A circular stone platform occupies the center, slightly raised from the floor and warmed from below. Around it, a narrow ring of water reflects the glass overhead. Most of the blue light comes from the ice itself. It is not bright, yet it reaches every surface evenly, turning the pale stone almost silver and leaving only the deepest corners in shadow. Along the far wall, the ice becomes thinner. A faint green tone appears within it, not as a visible aurora, but as color carried down through the frozen lake from the sky above. The effect moves slowly whenever the lights shift overhead. A glass door leads from the chamber into a rising passage. Through it, warmer illumination can be seen inside the lakeside pavilion first glimpsed from the walkway. The route returns towards the surface. The pavilion sits only slightly above lake level. Its interior is circular, enclosed by broad panes of glass divided by pale stone supports. Frost gathers along the lower corners, while the upper windows remain clear. A warm bathing pool occupies the center. Its edge follows the pavilion's curve, leaving a narrow path of heated stone between the water and the windows. The pool is deeper than those inside the hotel, colored dark blue by the tiles beneath it. A ring of cedar seating follows the inner wall. Folded grey towels rest at wide intervals, though no other objects interrupt the space. Outside, the frozen lake surrounds the pavilion. The glass walkway reaches one side, while the snow-covered shore lies behind it. Farther out, exposed ice holds a faint reflection of the changing sky. The pool water remains sheltered and still. Only a concealed inlet beneath the stone edge disturbs the surface, producing a slow current around the circular basin. Across the pavilion, tall doors open towards a heated terrace built directly above the lake. Snow lies only a few feet beyond the threshold. The terrace projects over the frozen water. Broad slabs of pale grey stone remain clear despite the snow falling beyond their edges. A thin line of meltwater marks the boundary where the heating ends. Low walls protect three sides. Their upper surfaces hold rounded layers of snow, while recessed vents release gentle warmth near the floor. The pavilion glows behind you through fogged glass. Ahead, the lake opens towards distant hills, its surface divided between broad white snowfields and darker exposed ice. Several stone loungers follow the inner wall. They have been shaped into gradual curves and warmed from beneath, each one facing the lake, without cushions or fabric. A narrow water channel crosses the terrace, It carries overflow from the pavilion pool towards a small outdoor basin built into the far corner. Steam rises there in a thin vertical thread. Beyond the basin, a covered archway leads to another pool positioned outside, but sheltered beneath the projecting roof. Snow falls beyond the terrace wall. Within the heated stone boundary, it becomes water almost as soon as it lands. The pool is open to the lake or on one side. 3 pale stone walls, and the roof shield it from the wind, while broad arches frame the frozen landscape beyond. Warm water fills the basin, almost to the edge. Its surface lies several feet below the surrounding floor, reached by a wide flight of submerged steps. Steam gathers beneath the roof before drifting outward through the arches. Snow rests across the outer ledges. Where flakes pass beneath the shelter, they settle briefly on the water and vanish without leaving a trace. The pool has been lined with dark slate. This gives the water a deeper color, reflecting the lake and sky without revealing every tile beneath the surface. A low channel connects it to the small terrace basin. Water enters steadily, crosses the pool, and disappears beneath a stone lip at the opposite side. The northern lights remain partly hidden by cloud. Only a muted green band can be seen beyond the arches. A narrower passage curves around the pool wall and leads towards an unsheltered section where the sky will be fully visible. The pool rests at the outermost edge of the spa. A low stone wall separates the water from the frozen lake below, placed carefully so the two surfaces appear to meet when viewed from within the basin. The cloud cover has opened. Above the distant hills, the aurora forms a broad green curtain layered with softer bands of turquoise. Violet appears only along one upper fold, faint enough to remain part of the night rather than dominate it. The warm pool holds the color more clearly than the ice. Its surface carries long green reflections that lengthen, divide, and rejoin whenever the water moves against the stone edge. Steam rises in thin, drifting sheets. At times it softens the view of the hills. At others, the wind clears it completely, leaving the water and sky connected across the low wall. The hotel is mostly hidden behind the spa roof. Only several upper windows and the outline of the glass dome remain visible above the sheltered pools. A stone path follows the water towards a glass door at the far end. Beyond it, a long interior hall catches every reflection from the pool and sky. The hall runs parallel to the lake. Shallow channels occupy both sides of the floor, leaving a broad central path of dark, polished stone between them. Warm water moves continuously through the channels, though its current is too slow to produce a visible ripple until it reaches the corners. Tall windows face the outdoor pool and frozen valley. The aurora enters through them in layered green reflections, crossing the polished path before continuing into the water on the opposite side. Nothing remains still for long. A change in the sky alters the windows. The windows alter the floor. The floor carries the color into the channels, where it breaks against pale stones beneath the surface. The hall contains no seating. Its purpose seems to be movement itself. Water traveling in one direction, reflected light traveling in another, and the path continuing between them. At the far end, the windows turn inward. A pair of dark brass lift doors stands beneath a tall stone arch, different from every other doorway in the spa. Above them, a narrow glass panel reveals the interior shaft rising through the hotel. The warm rooms beside the lake have reached their end. The next part of the journey leads upward. The lift car is narrower than the entrance suggests. Its lower walls are lined with dark walnut, polished smooth by many years of use. Above them, narrow brass frames divide panels of smoked glass, allowing brief views into the shaft beyond. A muted ceiling light rests behind ribbed glass. It gives the interior an even glow without creating sharp reflections across the doors. The floor is covered by a thick, woven carpet in deep blue-grey. At its centre lies a simple, circular pattern formed only by changes in the direction of the fibres. No letters, numbers, or symbols interrupt the surface. The doors close. For several seconds, nothing changes except the distant sound of water moving through the hall outside. Then the car begins to rise. The movement is slow enough to be felt only through the gentle shift of weight beneath the floor. Through the smoked side panels, the lower spa levels pass as alternating bands of pale stone, shadowed arches, and narrow lines of reflected water. Higher up, the shaft becomes darker. The brass framework catches occasional points of green light from glass panels built into the hotel walls. The lift continues beyond the public floors. When it finally slows, colder light appears around the upper doors. They open onto a landing beneath a tall window filled with snow and night sky. The landing is smaller than the halls below. Pale stone covers the floor, crossed by a long runner woven in charcoal, blue and muted green. Dark timber panels rise halfway up the walls before giving way to smooth plaster, tinted by the cold light from outside. A single window occupies the far end. It reaches almost to the ceiling, its lower corners thick with frost. Beyond it, the hotel roofs descend in several snow-covered levels towards the frozen lake. The aurora remains partly hidden by cloud. A pale green brightness rests above the distant hills, reflected faintly across the nearest roof glass. 2 corridors leave the landing. The first bends back towards the central hotel. The second passes through a pointed arch beneath a lower ceiling and continues towards the nearest tower. A narrow table stands between them. Its surface holds only a shallow bowl of dark stones and one clipped cedar branch. The lift doors close behind you. Their brass reflection disappears from the polished floor, leaving the landing lit by the window and several concealed lights beneath the wall panels. The pointed arch offers the quieter route. Beyond it, the carpet narrows and the ceiling begins to curve with the tower wall. The outer wall bends gradually to the left. Tall windows appear at measured intervals, each set into a deep stone recess. Their panes are clearer than those below, allowing the winter sky to enter the corridor in broad blue sections. Between the windows, dark wooden panels contain shallow shelves. Plain glass spheres rest within them, each one no larger than a small bowl. Some appear completely clear. Others hold pale internal fractures that catch the light without producing a glow of their own. The floor rises almost imperceptibly. A narrow carpet follows the curve, leaving pale stone visible along both edges. Outside, snow has gathered against the tower ledges. The lower hotel roofs move in and out of view as the corridor bends, while the frozen lake remains visible between chimneys and glass galleries. The green light in the sky becomes slightly more distinct. It still has no clear shape, yet its reflection appears along the rounded surfaces of the glass spheres. At the far end, the corridor reaches a pair of tall doors framed by windows on three sides. Beyond them lies a balcony protected behind glass, with snow pressed close against the outer structure. The balcony projects from the tower above the central roofs. Glass surrounds it on three sides, while a shallow stone ceiling protects the space overhead. Snow has gathered along the outer base of every pane, forming white ridges almost level with the inner floor. The balcony itself remains dry. Broad, dark grey slabs cover the surface, warm just enough to prevent frost from forming beneath the windows. A low stone bench follows the curved outer wall. Its surface is bare, allowing an uninterrupted view across the hotel. Below, the glass winter garden forms a long, pale shape beneath snow. The conservatory bridge crosses it like a dark line, while farther away, the lakeside pavilion rests near the frozen shore. From this height, the causeway and distant forest can also be seen. The route travelled earlier has become a narrow curve through the landscape. Cloud moves slowly above the lake. Through several openings, the aurora appears as soft green bands spread farther apart than before. At the inner side of the balcony, another door leads into a round room warmed by a small fireplace. A broad table stands near its windows, covered with instruments of brass, glass, and dark wood. The room follows the shape of the tower. Dark wooden shelves curve along the inner wall, holding brass instruments, clear lenses, pieces of polished stone, and small wooden boxes without labels. The broad table stands close to the windows. Its surface is divided into sections of dark timber and pale stone, each carrying a different object: a folded length of plain fabric, a brass frame holding a clear glass disc, and several smooth prisms resting inside shallow grooves. Nothing resembles a modern control panel. The room has the quiet order of a place designed for observation rather than operation. A narrow fireplace has been set into the inner wall. Its low flame warms two deep chairs facing the windows, upholstered in muted blue-grey fabric. Outside, the northern sky occupies almost the entire view. The hotel roofs fall away beneath the tower, leaving the lake and distant hills unobstructed. The cloud cover continues to thin. Several green bands now stretch above the horizon, still soft, but clearly separate from the darker sky around them. On the far side of the lounge, a glass door stands beneath a fan-shaped window. Beyond it, a long gallery contains suspended prisms, pale stone basins and narrow shafts of reflected colour. The gallery is long and almost entirely colourless. Pale stone covers the floor and lower walls. Above it, clear glass panels rise towards a shallow vaulted ceiling, crossed by narrow brass supports. Prisms hang between the supports. They vary in shape and size, though each remains simple. Long triangular pieces, thick glass discs, and several shallow curved lenses. None produces a bright beam. The light entering from the northern windows is too subdued for that. Instead, It gathers along their edges as faint green, blue, and occasional violet traces. Below the prisms, shallow stone basins have been set into the floor. Each contains a thin layer of still water. Reflections from the glass move across their surfaces whenever the aurora changes outside. The gallery curves gently around the tower. With every step, the prisms overlap differently, turning the same section of sky into several quiet fragments. The final basin is wider than the others. Behind it stands a pair of clear doors leading into a darker chamber where every wall appears to be glass. Within that room, reflected windows repeat the lake and sky in several directions. The room is wider than the gallery, but contains almost nothing. Dark stone covers the floor. Narrow channels of water follow the edges, creating thin reflective borders around the central space. The walls are formed from large panes of smoked glass. Some face the lake directly. Others have been set at shallow angles, repeating sections of sky, snow, and distant hills without creating a maze. The effect is calm rather than confusing. Each view remains recognizable, though the same aurora band may appear in 3 places at once. Once through the outer window, once in the angled glass, and once again in the water below. The ceiling is plain and dark. No visible light fitting interrupts it. Illumination comes from concealed strips beneath the floor edges and from the winter sky entering through the glass. A broad circular panel has been built into the far wall. Its center remains clear, while its outer sections are divided into narrow overlapping layers. Through it, trees and glass roofing can be seen above the hotel. The room connects directly to a rooftop winter garden enclosed within the upper wing. The garden is smaller than the winter garden below. Its planting has been chosen for the colder air of the roof. Low juniper, silver-green shrubs, dwarf pines and beds of pale winter grass. A narrow path winds between them. The paving is made from dark slate, warmed beneath the surface, and bordered by channels filled with smooth white stones. The roof curves overhead in broad sections of reinforced glass. Snow covers its lower edges, while the highest panels remain clear enough to reveal the northern sky. The aurora has become more defined. Several green curtains now stretch above the garden, their lower edges softened by thin cloud. No color enters the planting directly. Instead, it appears in the shallow water basins positioned between the beds, each one reflecting a separate section of sky. Near the center stands a simple cedar pavilion without walls. Its roof shelters a circular bench surrounding a low stone planter filled with winter grass. The path continues beyond it towards the far glass wall. There, a bridge extends from the garden to another tower, suspended above the snow-covered roofs. The bridge is longer than the conservatory crossing below. Its sides are formed from broad panes of glass held within dark metal frames, while the roof curves gently overhead beneath long bands of snow. The floor is pale stone. A narrow, heated strip follows the center, leaving the edges cooler and lightly misted where they meet the outer glass. Far below, the hotel roofs form a complicated winter landscape. Chimneys, glass galleries, small courtyards and covered passages lie between deep banks of snow. The frozen lake extends beyond them. From this height, its darker ice appears almost black beneath the green sky. The bridge rises slightly towards the northern tower. Ahead, the tower's circular observatory dome occupies the entire view, its glass sections crossed by slender ribs and partly covered with snow. Behind you, the rooftop garden becomes smaller with every step. Its shrubs and water basins remain visible beneath the curved roof. Halfway across, the cloud cover opens farther. Green light spreads above the bridge, reflected faintly in both glass walls. The observatory entrance waits beneath the dome. The dome chamber is circular and open. Its floor has been laid with dark stone around a central mechanism of pale brass and polished wood. The structure supports a long telescope angled towards a clear section of the roof. The instrument is simple in form. No markings or controls are visible from the entrance. Its broad lens remains covered by a dark glass plate that reflects the aurora above. The dome itself is divided into curved panels. Snow covers the lower sections, while several upper segments have shifted aside to create a narrow opening towards the north. Cold air enters only slightly. A circular channel beneath the roof carries warm air upward, keeping condensation away from the clear glass. Around the outer wall stand low benches with dark blue cushions. Between them, small tables hold plain lenses, polished stones and empty ceramic cups. The lake appears below the open roof segment. The green lights above it continue to strengthen, though clouds still cross their lower edge. A narrow stair curves upward around the wall. It leads to a raised observation platform close beneath the opening in the dome. The platform follows the tower wall. A low brass rail protects its outer edge, leaving the center open around the upper section of the telescope. From here, the lake can be seen without interruption. The lower hotel roofs remain beneath the platform, but beyond them, the frozen valley stretches from one distant ridge to the other. The cloud cover has broken into separate layers. Dark fragments move eastward, leaving broad, clear sections above the northern horizon. Within them, the aurora takes on a more complete shape. Several green curtains hang above the hills, folded softly and separated by narrow regions of darker sky. Their movement is gradual, visible only when one edge lifts or another becomes more transparent. Stars appear between the bands. They remain sharp where the sky is clear and soften where thin cloud passes over them. The telescope lens reflects a narrow green line. Nothing else in the dome changes. The platform simply offers a higher view, while the storm clouds continue leaving the lake behind. A small door at the far side opens into a circular room beyond the dome. Its windows face every direction. The room is almost entirely glass. Stone columns divide the windows at wide intervals, supporting a shallow ceiling of dark wood and brass. A narrow path follows the outer wall. At the center lies a circular floor of pale stone, bordered by a thin ring of dark metal. The frozen lake occupies the northern view. To the east and west, snowy hills, forest, and the hotel's tower roofs extend beneath the stars. The aurora has strengthened while remaining natural. Its green curtains now reach higher into the sky, with pale turquoise appearing where several folds overlap. A faint violet tone rests at the uppermost edge, visible only against the darkest sections of night. The room receives no direct artificial light. Small concealed strips beneath the window ledges are dim enough to keep the glass free from glare. The aurora reflects across the pale central floor. Its shape lengthens, divides and shifts as the color outside changes. A quiet vibration travels beneath the room. The circular floor has begun to move, turning so slowly that the view appears to drift rather than rotate. The movement is quieter than the lift. No gears can be heard. Only a soft vibration remains beneath the stone, steady enough to disappear from notice after several moments. The room rotates around the central floor. The columns pass gradually across the view, revealing one section of the hotel after another. First comes the lake pavilion and the glass walkway extending over the ice. Then the winter garden appears beneath its snow-covered roof, followed by the central tower and the dark line of the causeway beyond. The aurora remains visible in reflection, even when the northern sky moves out of direct view. Its color travels across the glass behind you, enters the polished stone, and appears again along the dark metal ring. At the eastern side, a curved wall section opens. Behind it lies a narrow passage, descending around the tower's interior. Warm mechanical sounds rise from below, the faint movement of chains, water, and turning metal. The observation room completes only part of its circle. The newly opened passage offers a view into the system that moves it. The passage follows a spiral of broad metal steps. At the bottom, the tower opens into a tall cylindrical chamber lined with dark stone. A central shaft rises through the ceiling. Around it, broad brass rings turn at different heights, each connected to narrower rods disappearing into the walls. Their movement is extremely slow. Large wooden wheels rotate beside them, guided by chains that travel through shallow channels without striking the stone. Water powers part of the system. A clear stream enters high along one wall, passes over a series of small paddles, and continues into a covered channel beneath the floor. Nothing is hurried. The mechanism seems designed to move continuously through the night with as little sound as possible. Narrow glass panels reveal other sections of the upper hotel. Through one, roof segments shift several inches beneath the snow. Through another, a prism frame changes angle towards the northern sky. The hotel is not following the aurora by traveling anywhere. Its upper rooms are slowly turning, opening and aligning themselves beneath the light. At the far side, a walkway crosses the chamber towards a tall glass shaft filled with green reflection. The shaft is empty of water. Its name comes only from the way the color moves within it. Tall panes of glass form a vertical channel, rising beyond the visible ceiling and descending through several floors below. At the top, angled mirrors and clear lenses gather a portion of the aurora, entering through the roof. The light passes downward in broad, translucent layers. It does not form a solid beam. Instead, green reflections overlap across the glass, folding and separating as the upper panels continue their slow adjustment. The effect resembles a silent waterfall suspended inside the tower. A narrow balcony circles the shaft. Its dark stone floor remains almost unlit, allowing the reflected color to remain gentle rather than brilliant. Through openings below, the green layers can be seen reaching several upper rooms. Some pass into water channels, others spread across pale ceilings, or disappear behind panels of smoked glass. The hotel has been built to distribute the northern light without trapping it. Across the circular balcony, a clear door opens into a chamber where the descending reflections gather beneath a glass roof. The chamber sits directly beneath a shallow glass dome. Its walls are pale stone, unbroken except for narrow vertical panels of translucent glass. A circular pool occupies the center. The water is no more than a few inches deep, spread across a dark stone base that reflects the roof with unusual clarity. Green light enters through the dome. Additional reflections arrive through the narrow wall panels, carried from the shaft beyond. The colors meet across the pool without becoming bright. One layer moves slowly from the ceiling. Another travels horizontally across the walls. Where they cross, faint turquoise appears for several seconds before separating again. A low stone path circles the water. No seating or ornament interrupts it. The chamber has been constructed entirely around the changing relationship between glass, water, and sky. Above, the aurora continues shifting. The dome panels adjust almost imperceptibly, following the widest band while allowing snow to remain along their outer edges. A tall opening on the far side leads into a warmer observation salon, furnished with chairs and a narrow fire. The salon is long and gently curved. Dark wooden walls frame a row of broad windows facing north. Between them, narrow stone columns carry the ceiling and conceal small vents that keep the glass clear. Deep chairs stand at wide intervals. Their fabric is muted blue, grey, and forest green. Each faces the windows rather than the other chairs, allowing the lake and sky to remain the room's center. A narrow fireplace burns along the inner wall. Its flame is low and protected behind dark glass, giving warmth without creating strong reflections across the windows. Small tables hold plain ceramic cups and smooth pieces of pale stone. No books or papers have been left here. The aurora now spans most of the northern horizon. Its brightest green fold hangs above the distant hills, while thinner curtains extend east and west above the lake. The salon keeps the color outside. Only a diluted reflection reaches the polished floor and chair arms. At the far end, glass doors open towards a sheltered terrace beneath the tower's projecting roof. Snow moves beyond them in the higher wind. The roof extends several feet beyond the windows. Beneath it, broad stone paving remains mostly clear, warmed by narrow lines beneath the surface. Snow begins only at the outer edge, where it forms a soft, white boundary beside the low wall. The terrace follows the curve of the tower. Several dark stone seats have been built into the inner side, shaped to face the lake without requiring cushions. Warm air rises from discrete vents beneath them. Beyond the wall, the northern sky has become fully visible. The aurora moves above the frozen valley in layered green curtains, with restrained turquoise where the folds overlap. The higher wind affects only the snow. Loose powder travels across the tower roof and disappears over the far side, while the sheltered terrace remains still. A narrow water channel runs beside the wall. Its surface is kept liquid by the heat beneath the stone, reflecting a thin green line from the sky. At the far end, the terrace turns towards an exposed glass-sided walkway, rising over the highest snow-covered roof. The route continues above the main structure of the hotel. The walkway has no enclosing roof. Clear panels rise to shoulder height on both sides, held between dark metal posts that leave the sky completely open above. The path is made from heated stone. Snow has melted from its center, though a narrow white line remains along the outside of each glass panel. Below, the hotel roof slopes away beneath several feet of untouched snow. Only the tops of dark metal ribs and several ventilation housings remain visible above the surface. The path climbs gently. With every step, the lake falls farther below, while the highest glass dome grows larger ahead. The aurora now fills almost the entire northern sky. Its movement remains slow, forming broad green folds with pale turquoise edges, and only occasional traces of violet near the uppermost curtain. No light has been added to the walkway. The stone is illuminated by the sky and by concealed warmth beneath its surface. At the final rise, the glass panels curve inward. They meet a circular entrance built into the base of the hotel's highest dome. The dome stands above every other part of the building. Its interior is circular, enclosed by tall, curved panes that meet at a narrow ring overhead. Snow rests around the lower exterior sections, leaving the upper glass completely clear. A shallow pool surrounds the room's center. Its water forms a wide ring around a raised stone platform, reached by one narrow bridge. The surface remains perfectly still. Above it, the northern lights fill the dome. Green curtains cross from one side of the sky to the other, layered with pale turquoise and the faintest trace of violet near their highest folds. The glass does not intensify the color. It simply removes every obstruction between the room and the winter night. The hotel's towers and roofs lie far below. Beyond them, the frozen lake stretches towards the dark hills, carrying only a subdued reflection of the lights above. At the center of the raised platform stands a circular glass opening in the floor. Through it, the aurora chamber can be seen several levels beneath, connected by the descending light shaft and reflective pools. The full design of the skywing is finally visible. Glass, water, and slowly turning rooms guide the northern lights through the hotel without disturbing their natural movement. A narrow door in the far wall leads downward towards the highest guest corridors. The door closes quietly behind you. At once, the enormous sky above the dome becomes a softened green presence through the glass, rather than an uninterrupted view. The stair follows the shape of the roof. Broad, pale steps descend in a gradual curve beneath a low ceiling of stone and dark timber. Along the outer side, narrow windows reveal fragments of the dome, the snow-covered roof, and the lake far below. The ring pool remains visible through the first opening. Its dark water surrounds the central platform, holding a smaller reflection of the aurora as the stair carries you beneath its level. Warm air rises from slim vents beside the inner wall. It keeps the stone dry, though frost gathers around the window corners, where the winter cold reaches through the glass. The sound changes as you descend. The high roof no longer holds the wind directly. Instead, only a muted pressure passes over the structure, accompanied by the distant movement of the observatory mechanism several levels below. A final turn places the dome completely out of sight. Ahead, the stair reaches a small landing with dark wooden doors and a long corridor extending beneath a row of shallow skylights. The highest guest wing begins here. The corridor is long, but not grand. Its ceiling remains low beneath the roof, crossed by dark beams that divide shallow panels of pale plaster. Between them, narrow skylights admit broken sections of the aurora. A thick runner follows the floor. Its surface is woven from charcoal, muted blue, and a green so faint that it appears only where the skylight reaches it. Guest room doors line the inner wall. They are made from dark walnut with simple brass handles, each set beneath a shallow stone arch. No name, number, or symbol distinguishes one from another. The outer wall contains deep windows overlooking the hotel roofs. Snow rests almost level with several lower panes. Beyond it, chimneys and glass galleries rise from the white surface before falling away towards the lake. The corridor bends gently with the tower. Small recessed lights remain close to the floor, illuminating the carpet edges without reaching the ceiling. Halfway along, the windows widen around a glass-sided passage, crossing a narrow gap in the roof. Snow moves slowly beyond its panes. On the far side, cedar paneling and a warmer light indicate a quieter section of the guest wing. The route continues through the glass. The passage is only several yards long. Glass surrounds it on both sides and overhead, held within narrow, dark frames. Snow has collected across the roof panels in uneven strips, leaving clear sections through which the aurora can still be seen. Below, the gap between the buildings is filled with shadow. A narrow service courtyard lies several floors beneath, almost entirely covered by drifting snow. Only the top of a stone arch and several dark evergreen branches remain visible. The passage floor is heated slate. Moisture gathers where the stone meets the glass, forming a thin line that reflects the green sky before disappearing into discrete channels beneath the frames. The wind is more noticeable here. It moves over the exposed roof and pushes loose snow against the outer panes, though no cold air enters the enclosed crossing. Ahead, the glass ends beneath a cedar arch. Beyond it stands a small room with stone counters, covered pots and shelves holding plain cups. A narrow window above the counter faces the lake. The guest wing has its own quiet pantry, separated from the kitchens far below. The room is narrow and orderly. Cedar panels cover the walls from floor to ceiling, their grain darkened near the counter by years of warmth and steam. A pale stone work surface runs beneath the window. On it stand two covered pots, a plain ceramic teapot, and several cups arranged upside down on a folded linen cloth. Nothing is labelled. Glass jars occupy a shallow shelf above the counter, holding dried leaves, berries, and narrow pieces of citrus peel. Their contents are visible only by colour and shape. A small iron stove has been built into the inner wall. Its door remains closed, though a faint warmth reaches the surrounding stone and keeps the room comfortable. The lake-facing window is deep and frost-edged. Outside, the highest roofs slope away beneath snow, allowing a clear view towards the frozen water and the northern hills. Steam rises briefly from the teapot spout, then vanishes against the cooler glass. At the far end, an open doorway reveals a larger guest lounge. Low shelves, reading chairs, and a broad window occupy the room beyond. The pantry provides warmth without requiring anyone to remain in it. The quiet lounge offers the next place to pause. The room follows the angle of the roof. Its ceiling descends towards the inner wall, where low shelves hold books in faded blue, charcoal, brown, and muted green. No title can be seen. The outer side of the room is almost entirely glass. A broad window begins just above the floor and rises into a sloping section overhead, placing snow, stars, and the lower aurora within one continuous view. Several reading chairs face the glass. They are wider and softer than those in the public rooms below, upholstered in deep grey blue, with low wooden arms. Small tables stand beside them. Each holds an empty cup, a plain glass vessel, and one smooth stone gathered from the lakeshore. At the centre lies a dark, woven rug. Its fibres catch a narrow band of green from the window, changing colour slightly whenever the aurora shifts above the roof. A low bookshelf divides the lounge from a short passage beyond. At the end of that passage stands a single pair of tall walnut doors, slightly darker than every other door in the corridor. Beyond them, broad windows and a private fireplace can be seen. The hotel's highest suite waits on the other side. The doors open into a small entrance hall. Dark wood frames the walls, while the floor is laid with pale stone, softened by a long blue-grey rug. A shallow niche stands to one side. It contains a simple cedar bench, several empty hooks, and a low stone tray, intended for snow-covered footwear, though the surface is dry. Opposite it, a tall mirror has been replaced by smoked glass. It reflects only blurred light and the movement of the aurora beyond the next room, never a clear image of the entrance. The suite opens ahead. A wide arch reveals a sitting room gathered around a narrow fireplace. Beyond the chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows face the frozen lake, without another roof or tower interrupting the view. The aurora has begun to soften. Its strongest folds remain above the hills, while thinner green layers stretch across the upper windows. A second passage leaves the entrance hall to the right. Warm stone, frosted glass, and a low channel of water suggest a private bathing room farther within the suite. The sitting room lies directly ahead. Its fire and windows draw the entrance into a quieter space. The room is longer than it first appeared. Its outer wall curves gently around the tower, formed almost entirely from tall windows divided by narrow stone supports. 3 deep chairs face the view. Their upholstery is muted blue, forest green and soft grey, arranged at wide intervals so that each has its own uninterrupted section of glass. A narrow fireplace burns along the inner wall. Its flame remains low behind dark glass, adding warmth without turning the windows into mirrors. A long table stands behind the chairs. Its pale stone surface holds a ceramic pot, 2 empty cups, and a shallow bowl filled with smooth, dark pebbles. The lake below appears broader from this side of the tower. Its central ice is darker than before, interrupted by snowfields and several pale fractures visible beneath the surface. Above it, the aurora stretches in loose green bands. The brightest curtains have begun moving west, leaving more stars over the eastern hills. At the far end of the sitting room, a glass door opens into a narrow conservatory built along the suite's outer curve. Dark leaves and pale winter grasses stand behind lightly misted panes. The conservatory is no wider than a corridor. Low stone planters follow the windows, filled with silver-green shrubs, dark ivy, and pale grasses that bend slightly in the warm air rising from beneath the floor. The roof is glass. Snow rests along its outer edge, while the central panels remain clear above the path. Through them, the aurora appears almost directly overhead. Its green folds have widened and become more transparent, allowing more stars to show through than before. A narrow slate path runs between the planters. At one side, a shallow channel carries warm water through smooth white stones. Its surface reflects the roof in broken sections whenever it passes beneath the leaves. The sitting room remains visible through the inner glass wall. The fireplace has become a small amber line behind the chairs, already distant, despite being only a few steps away. At the far end, the planting gives way to pale stone. A frosted glass door stands partly open, releasing a faint veil of steam into the conservatory. Beyond it lies the suite's private bathing chamber. The chamber is oval. Pale stone walls curve around a single pool, set slightly below the surrounding floor. Its water is clear and nearly colourless, revealing broad submerged steps at the near end. Cedar slats cross the ceiling. Between them, concealed vents release warm air that keeps the room free from heavy steam. The outer wall is made from one broad pane of glass. Frost frames its edges, but the centre remains clear, holding the lake and western aurora beyond the pool. A narrow channel enters beneath the glass. Water travels slowly along the window before joining the bath through a concealed opening beneath the stone edge. The resulting current is almost invisible. Only a faint movement across the surface changes the reflection of the sky. A low cedar bench follows the inner wall. Folded grey towels rest at either end beside undecorated ceramic bowls. The bathing room contains no bright fittings or decorative light. Its warmth comes from the floor, the water, and a narrow line concealed beneath the bench. Beyond the pool, another frosted doorway leads into a smaller drying room, where pale fabric and dark wood replace the stone. The floor changes from stone to dark wood. Its boards are narrow and smooth, warmed beneath the surface so that no moisture remains near the doorway. Cedar panels rise along the walls. A broad bench occupies one side, beneath several empty hooks, with folded lengths of pale linen arranged in a shallow, open shelf below. Opposite it stands a tall window. Frost covers most of the glass, leaving only a narrow, clear centre through which the snowy roof and a distant strip of lake can be seen. Green light reaches the room indirectly. It appears along the frost branches and the polished upper edge of the bench, softened until it resembles colour held inside the glass. A low cabinet stands beneath the window. Its surface holds a plain stone bowl, one folded cloth, and a clear vessel containing a cedar branch. The room narrows towards an open doorway. Beyond it, the suite's outer wall returns in a long stretch of glass. But this time, the windows open onto a private roof terrace. The terrace paving is clear. Snow gathers beyond its low boundary, and the northern lake lies directly below. The terrace is narrower than the public roof spaces. A deep overhang protects the paving, while clear glass panels rise above the low outer wall to block the wind without interrupting the view. The stone beneath you remains dry and warm. Snow begins beyond the shelter, forming rounded banks along the outside of the glass. Two curved stone seats have been built into the inner wall. They face the lake and hold no cushions, their surfaces warmed from beneath. Between them, a small dark basin contains perfectly still water. Its edge is level with the terrace floor, allowing the aurora to appear as a thin green shape surrounded by stone. The hotel roofs fall away below. The highest dome rises behind the terrace, while farther down the slope, the winter garden and lakeside pavilion form smaller illuminated shapes within the snow. The lake stretches directly ahead. The aurora has shifted westward, drawing its longest curtain towards the distant ridge. At the far end of the terrace, the glass barrier curves outward around a small overlook. There, the lake can be seen from east to west without any part of the hotel entering the view. The overlook extends only a few feet beyond the terrace wall. Its floor is dark stone, bordered by clear glass that becomes almost invisible against the night. Nothing stands between the platform and the lake. The frozen surface fills the valley from the forested near shore to the distant white hills. Snow covers most of it. Several exposed bands remain near the center, where the ice appears deep blue and holds narrow pale cracks beneath the surface. The aurora has begun to loosen. Its earlier curtains now stretch into wider, softer shapes, with more darkness visible between them. Green remains strongest above the western ridge. A muted turquoise edge follows one fold before fading into the stars. The lake reflects very little. Only the darkest exposed ice carries a faint broken line of color, while the broad snowfields remain blue-gray beneath the sky. The hotel can no longer be seen from the center of the overlook. Only a quiet warmth reaches through the stone floor, reminding you that the tower stands immediately behind. The night feels larger here, but not emptier. The terrace path leads back towards the suite, where the glass door remains softly lit. The gallery runs behind the sitting room. Its outer wall is glass, though the terrace overhang and nearby roof soften the direct view of the sky. Along the inner wall, dark wooden panels alternate with narrow niches. Each holds a single object: a pale stone, a clear bowl, a piece of weathered cedar, or a small cluster of smooth black pebbles. Nothing has been arranged in pairs. The floor is pale stone, beneath a long, muted rug. Only the edge of the aurora reaches through the glass, appearing as a diluted green reflection that moves slowly along the polished surface. Through open passages on the left, Earlier rooms return in fragments. The conservatory path is visible behind misted glass. Farther back, the private sitting room fireplace continues as a narrow amber line. The gallery grows quieter as it moves inward. At the far end, a wide doorway stands beneath a shallow arch of dark wood. Beyond it lies the suite's sleeping room. A low bed, broad windows, and a glass roof section can be seen from the threshold. No object blocks the route into the final chamber. The bedroom is broad but sparsely furnished. A low bed stands near the centre, angled towards the northern windows rather than placed against a wall. Its frame is dark wood. The bedding is layered in pale grey, muted blue and soft natural wool, without pattern or ornament. Above the bed, part of the ceiling has been replaced by sloping glass. Snow rests along the lower edge, while the clear upper section reveals stars and the thinning aurora. The room's outer windows continue the lake view. Their lower panes are framed by frost, leaving the central glass clear above the frozen valley. A small fireplace sits within the inner wall. Its flame is lower than the one in the sitting room, protected behind dark glass and reflected only faintly across the polished stone floor. Two low tables stand beside the bed. One holds a plain ceramic cup. The other supports a shallow bowl of pale stones. No clock, book, or written object has been left within the room. At the far side, narrow curtains remain drawn back from a smaller window alcove. The night enters only through glass, softened by warmth and stillness. From beside the bed, the roof fills more of the view. The lower glass remains edged by snow. Above it, clear panels rise towards dark timber beams, framing a wide section of northern sky. The aurora passes slowly across them. Its green bands have become thinner and more transparent, revealing stars through their folds. A faint trace of turquoise appears where two layers cross, then disappears as the upper curtain moves west. The bed is prepared without formality. The wool cover lies smooth across the lower half, while two broad pillows rest against a low upholstered headboard in deep blue-grey. A narrow strip of heated stone surrounds the frame. Beyond it, the floor changes to dark wood near the windows, reducing the cold reflected light beneath the glass. The fireplace remains visible at the edge of the room. Its flame no longer rises continuously. It settles lower behind the dark screen, brightening only when one piece of wood shifts inward. The lake beyond the windows becomes less distinct. Snowfields and dark ice merge into broad, quiet shapes beneath the stars. The room has no need to close itself from the sky. The glass roof allows the night to remain present without allowing the cold inside. The flame contracts behind the dark glass. It no longer touches the upper part of the firebox. Instead, a low amber line moves between the remaining pieces of wood, appearing and disappearing beneath their darkened edges. The room changes with it. Warm reflections withdraw from the stone floor, leaving the windows and glass roof to provide most of the light. The bed remains softly visible. Its pale wool cover takes on the blue-grey colour of the snow outside, while the dark frame nearly disappears against the floor. No artificial light has been switched off. The room simply grows dimmer as the fire lowers, and the aurora shifts farther from the center of the roof. A soft, mechanical sound travels through the wall. Somewhere above, a glass panel adjusts by a fraction. Far below, the quiet mechanism continues aligning the hotel beneath the night. The change is barely audible. The windows remain clear. Beyond them, the lake rests beneath the stars, with one faint green reflection, still visible on a strip of exposed ice. The fire gives one brief rise, then settles again. Its final warmth remains held in the stone long after the flame becomes small. The snow does not fall directly onto the glass. Wind carries it from the higher roof, sending loose powder across the outer surface in thin, uneven waves. Each one reaches the first timber rib, gathers briefly, and then continues towards the lower edge. The clear center of the roof remains open. Stars are visible there, sharper now that the brightest aurora folds have moved west. Only a narrow green veil crosses the uppermost corner. Its color touches the snow for several seconds, giving the moving powder a muted turquoise edge before it returns to white. Inside, nothing stirs. The curtains remain drawn back. The bedding lies smooth. The last firelight stays low behind the dark glass. The sound above is softer than rain. Snow brushes across the roof in short passages, followed by longer intervals when the glass holds only the sky. Along the windows, frost thickens almost imperceptibly at the lower corners. The warm air within the room prevents it from spreading farther. The hotel's highest spaces continue to face the winter night, but the bedroom now feels enclosed by quieter forms of it. Snow, dark glass, and stars. A water channel shifts somewhere within the wall. The sound is brief, traveling downward before disappearing beneath the floor. Farther away, one of the upper glass rooms completes a slow adjustment. Its movement reaches the bedroom, only as a soft vibration through the timber beam above the window. The old lift passes several levels below. No bell or door can be heard. Only the faint weight of the car moving through the shaft before becoming still again. Every sound belongs to the building. None enters suddenly. The hotel appears to be settling into the shape it will hold for the remainder of the night. The highest dome has stopped turning. The prism gallery has found its final angle. Water continues crossing the spa halls and under ice tunnels far below, though only a distant trace rises through the tower. Within the bedroom, the last fire has become a bed of dark embers. The glass roof remains clear at the center. Snow stays along its edges, forming a soft white frame around the stars. The aurora has moved farther west. Only its lowest green band remains above the lake-facing windows. The building no longer seems to be gathering the northern light. It is simply resting beneath what remains of them. The movement is gradual. One edge thins first, becoming transparent enough for the stars behind it to return. The center follows. Green softens into a pale wash, while the narrow turquoise line above it disappears completely. Through the bedroom windows, the western hills remain dark. Their snow-covered upper slopes catch only the faintest color before the aurora passes beyond them. The lake loses its reflection. Exposed ice that carried green earlier now appears deep blue, divided by pale cracks beneath the surface. Inside, the change reaches every reflective surface. The skylight returns to dark glass and stars. The polished stone near the bed becomes grey rather than green. The clear cup on the low table holds only a small reflection of the window. The room does not become completely dark. Snow continues to return a cold, gentle brightness from the roof and lake. The fire has nearly vanished. One ember remains visible behind the dark screen, brightening briefly before becoming still. The aurora remains somewhere beyond the western ridge. Its presence can no longer be seen directly, yet the hotel retains the warmth gathered during its passage. The bedroom remains open to the night through its glass roof and northern windows. Nothing outside has stopped. Snow continues crossing the distant ridges. Clouds move far beyond the lake. Stars shift slowly above the clear center of the roof. Yet every movement has become too gradual to follow. The lake lies beneath the tower in broad layers of blue-grey snow and dark ice. The causeway is hidden by distance. The forest has become a low shadow along the shore. The glass pavilion and hotel roofs rest below, their windows reduced to small points of restrained warmth. Within the room, the stone floor holds the remaining heat of the fire. The bed stands beneath the skylight, surrounded by dark wood, pale wool, and the faint outline of frost around the glass. No green light remains on the ceiling. Only starlight reaches the bedding now, soft enough to leave most of the room in shadow. Water continues traveling through the hotel. It moves through winter gardens, mineral pools, channels beneath the ice, and the reflective rooms of the sky wing. Above them all, the highest guest room remains still. The storm has passed beyond the valley. The northern lights have crossed the lake. The hotel rests beneath the remaining stars.